Beneath the sprawling grandeur of Vatican City, shielded by centuries of dogma and miles of reinforced concrete, lies one of the most mysterious and heavily guarded repositories of information on Earth, the Vatican Apostolic Archive, famously known for centuries as the Vatican Secret Archives. The very name evokes images of Dan Brown novels, shadowed corridors, and forbidden knowledge, but the reality is both more mundane and far more terrifying than fiction suggests. Physically, the archives are a subterranean fortress, boasting an estimated 53 miles of shelving that holds over 35,000 cataloged volumes and millions of uncatalogued documents, spanning 12 centuries of human history. This is the central nervous system of the Catholic Church, the memory bank of an institution that has outlasted empires, kings, and dictators. While the Vatican officially claims the word secretum merely means private or personal to the Pope rather than hidden, the extreme security protocols tell a different story. Access is strictly limited to a handful of vetted scholars per year who must endure rigorous background checks, navigate a labyrinth of bureaucratic approvals, and are forbidden from browsing. They must request specific documents by catalog number, meaning if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you will never find it. Conspiracy theorists, alternative historians, and even some frustrated academics argue that the archives are not just a library, but a prison for dangerous truths, texts that could dismantle the foundations of Christianity, artifacts that prove the existence of extraterrestrial life, or records of the Church's darkest financial and political sins. The Smithsonian cover-up pales in comparison to the Vatican's potential for historical suppression, as the Church has had 2,000 years to confiscate, hide, or destroy anything that threatened its absolute authority. Is the Vatican protecting the faithful from lies, or is it protecting itself from the truth? As we descend into the history of this subterranean vault, we must ask, what kind of knowledge is so powerful that it requires 53 miles of silence to contain it? One of the most persistent and explosive theories surrounding the Vatican archives concerns the suppression of the lost Gospels and other apocryphal texts that challenge the canonical narrative of the Bible. For centuries, rumors have swirled that the shelves contain original manuscripts of the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and perhaps even a Q source, the theoretical document that Matthew and Luke supposedly copied from. These texts, discovered in fragments at Nag Hammadi in 1945, present a version of Christianity that is radically different from the one taught in Sunday school. One where Jesus is a mystical teacher of inner wisdom rather than a blood sacrifice, where women hold equal spiritual authority, and where the kingdom of God is a state of consciousness, not a literal afterlife. The theory posits that the early church fathers, particularly during the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, systematically hunted down and destroyed these heretical writings to consolidate their power and establish a unified, patriarchal hierarchy. However, they didn't destroy everything. The Vatican, being an institution of hoarders, allegedly kept the best copies for themselves, locking them away in the secretum to ensure they never saw the light of day. Whispers from scholars who have gained limited access suggest the existence of uncatalogued sections, labeled only as miscellanea or fragmenta, where dangerous heretical texts might be stored. Some even claim the archives hold the Grand Grimoire, also known as the Gospel of Satan, an occult book supposedly dating back to the 16th century that contains instructions for summoning demons and making pacts with the devil. The legend says the Vatican possesses the only unadulterated copy, keeping it hidden not to destroy it, but to use it, or to prevent it from unleashing chaos. Whether it's the mystical teachings of a Gnostic Christ or the dark rituals of medieval sorcery, the accusation is the same. The Church has appointed itself the sole arbiter of spiritual truth, curating the Bible by censorship and hiding the alternatives in a basement where only the Pope holds the key. The existence of the Gospel of Judas, which portrays the betrayer as Jesus' most loyal disciple, was a shock when it surfaced on the black market. But many believe the Vatican has had its own copy for centuries, studying it in silence while publicly condemning it as heresy. If the suppression of spiritual texts is the Vatican's oldest sin, the Chronovisor represents its strangest modern conspiracy. This theory alleges that in the 1950s, a team of Vatican scientists led by Father Pellegrino Ernetti a Benedictine monk and quantum physicist, developed a device capable of viewing past events. The Chronovisor supposedly worked not by time travel, but by detecting and decoding the residual electromagnetic radiation and sound waves left behind by every action, much like tuning a television to a broadcast that happened centuries ago. Ernetti claimed to have used the machine to witness the speeches of Cicero, the performance of a lost tragedy by Thyestes, and, most controversially, the crucifixion of Christ itself. He allegedly captured a photo of Jesus' face on the cross, which was leaked to the press but quickly debunked as a photo of a statue. The conspiracy deepens with the claim that the Vatican dismantled the device and hid the blueprints in the deepest level of the secret archives because the technology was too dangerous. A machine that could view any moment in history would destroy the concept of privacy, state secrets, and perhaps even religion itself if the truth of miracles turned out to be mundane. The Vatican has always walked a tightrope between faith and reason, funding observatories while putting Galileo on trial. The Chronovisor legend suggests that the Church's archives might contain advanced scientific knowledge or technologies, perhaps ancient, perhaps extraterrestrial, perhaps derived from the genius of suppressed inventors like Tesla, that are kept hidden to maintain the status quo. It paints the Vatican not just as a religious institution, but as a technocratic cabal hoarding the source code of reality. Access to such a device would make the Vatican the ultimate intelligence agency, capable of blackmailing any world leader by simply tuning in to their private sins. The silence of the archives on this matter is absolute, but the legend endures as a modern myth of forbidden technology, a sci-fi twist on the ancient theme of hidden knowledge. Beyond spiritual and technological secrets, the Vatican archives are undeniably a graveyard of political intrigue, nowhere more evident than in the case of the Knights Templar. For 700 years, history taught that Pope Clement V had condemned the Templars as heretics, devil worshippers, and sodomites in 1307, dissolving the order and allowing the French King Philip IV to burn them at the stake and seize their vast fortune. This narrative of papal betrayal stood unchallenged until 2001, when Dr. Barbara Frail, a Vatican paleographer, stumbled upon a misfiled document in the archives known as the Chinon parchment. This crumbling piece of vellum proved to be a bombshell. It was the official record of the papal inquiry into the Templars, and it showed that Clement V had actually absolved the Templar leadership of all heresy charges. The Pope knew they were innocent of the grossest accusations, but he suppressed this finding to appease the powerful French king, effectively sacrificing his own holy warriors to save his political skin. The document had been lost in the wrong box for 7 centuries, a convenient clerical error that allowed the Church to avoid apologizing for one of the greatest judicial murders in medieval history. The discovery of the Chinon parchment validated the suspicions of centuries of historians and conspiracy theorists that the archives contained the smoking guns of history. The documents that prove the official story is a lie. If a pivotal record exonerating the Templars could be misplaced for 700 years, what else is hidden in the wrong folder? This discovery has fueled speculation about other legendary suppressions, such as the Third Secret of Fatima. In 1917, 3 shepherd children in Portugal claimed the Virgin Mary gave them 3 prophetic secrets. The first 2 were revealed, visions of hell and the end of World War I. But the third was kept hidden by the Vatican for decades, fueling rumors of a doomsday prophecy or a prediction of apostasy within the Church itself. When the Vatican finally released the Third Secret in 2000, describing a vision of a pope being killed, many Catholics cried foul, arguing the released text didn't match the descriptions given by the seers and that the real secret, one that perhaps predicts the collapse of the Vatican, is still locked in the Secretum. The Templar precedent proves that the Vatican is capable of hiding exculpatory or damning evidence for centuries, making the mistake defense harder to swallow. The archives are not just a passive storage facility. They are an active player in the curation of history, a place where the truth can be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. If the spiritual and historical secrets of the Vatican are disturbing, its alleged connection to extraterrestrial phenomena propels the conspiracy into the stratosphere. Grush alleged that in 1933, a bell-shaped craft crashed in Magenta, Italy, and was recovered by Mussolini's forces. The claim states that Pope Pius XII, fearing the technology would fall into the hands of the Axis powers or the atheistic Soviets, backchanneled the information to the United States, allowing the Americans to seize the craft after the war. This magenta crash theory posits that the Vatican has known about non-human intelligence for nearly a century and has played a central role in the global cover-up. The archives supposedly contain the detailed reports of this retrieval, along with centuries of accounts of aerial phenomena that the Church publicly categorized as miracles or demonic activity, but privately understood to be extraterrestrial. Researchers like Diana Walsh-Pasulka argue that the archives are filled with descriptions of flying houses, orbs entering nuns' cells, and silver discs in the sky, recorded with the meticulous detail of Church bureaucracy. The Church's interest in the stars is not a secret. The Vatican Observatory is one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world, and its astronomers, like the Jesuit Guy Consolmagno, have openly discussed the theological implications of baptizing aliens. However, conspiracy theorists point to the ominously named LUCFR instrument used by Vatican-affiliated astronomers in Arizona as proof of a sinister agenda. They argue that the Church is actively scanning the skies for Project Omega, the return of the gods who are not divine, but biological entities from another world. The refusal of the Vatican to open its archives to UFO researchers, despite Marco Grilli's dismissal that looking for aliens in the Secretum is as futile as looking for Pontius Pilate's diary, only fuels the suspicion. If the Church has nothing to hide, why the secrecy? The theory suggests that the Vatican is preparing for a disclosure on its own terms, aiming to position itself as the spiritual intermediary between humanity and our space brothers, ensuring that the arrival of aliens does not destroy the Catholic faith, but reinforces it. Beyond aliens and time machines, the Vatican archives are also rumored to hold the dark receipts of the Church's financial and political dealings during the 20th century's greatest atrocity, the Holocaust. The Vatican Gold conspiracy alleges that the Institute for the Works of Religion, the Vatican Bank, served as a money laundering hub for the Nazi regime and its puppet state in Croatia, the Ustasha. This financial shielding was allegedly part of the Ratlins, a system of escape routes that helped thousands of war criminals, including Klaus Barbie and Adolf Eichmann, flee to South America, often with Vatican passports or Red Cross travel documents procured by sympathetic priests. For decades, the archives covering the papacy of Pius XII, the wartime pope, were sealed, fueling accusations that he remained silent on the Holocaust to protect Church interests or to maintain a bulwark against Soviet communism. In 2020, Pope Francis finally ordered these archives open to scholars in an attempt to clear the air. However, the sheer volume of documents, millions of pages, means that the full truth is still being excavated. Early findings have been mixed. While they show Pius XII worked behind the scenes to save thousands of Jews in Rome, they also reveal that the Vatican had detailed knowledge of the death camps much earlier than previously admitted and chose diplomatic caution over public condemnation. But the deep conspiracy theorists argue that the real incriminating documents, those detailing the specific gold transfers and the identities of the priests who ran the Ratlins, were cleansed from the files long before the doors were opened. The archive, in this view, is a sanitized crime scene. The suspicion is that the Vatican's wealth is partly built on blood money, and the proof lies in ledgers that have been burned or buried in the deepest, inaccessible vaults of the Secretum. This theory transforms the archives from a passive library into an active accomplice in the darkest crimes of the 20th century, hiding the evidence that the Vicar of Christ made a deal with the devil to survive the war. The physical reality of the archives also plays a crucial role in the mystique of the cover-up. The bunker theory suggests that the 53 miles of shelving we know about are just the tip of the iceberg, the public secret archives. Rumors persist of a deep vault, or Level Z, a subterranean complex located beneath the main archives, accessible only by a specialized elevator and guarded by the Swiss Guards elite unit. This lower level is said to house the items that are too dangerous for even vetted scholars to see. The physical artifacts of the crucifixion, the true spear of destiny, the menorah from the Second Temple of Jerusalem, looted by Rome in 70 AD and allegedly hidden by the Vatican, and perhaps even the Ark of the Covenant. The theory claims that the Vatican is the true heir to the Roman Empire's loot, hoarding the spiritual treasures of the civilizations it conquered or superseded. While the Vatican denies possessing these artifacts, the historical trail of the temple menorah ends in Rome, and for 2,000 years, no one has been able to prove it isn't there. Furthermore, the digitization project currently underway at the Vatican Library adds a modern twist to the conspiracy. While the official goal is preservation and access, critics argue that digitization is the ultimate form of censorship. A digital archive can be edited without leaving a trace. If a page from a 15th century manuscript contradicts church dogma, it can be deleted from the server, and if the original is locked in a bunker, the digital lie becomes the historical truth. This fear of digital revisionism keeps the focus on the physical vaults, the only place where the unadulterated history of the world might still exist. The archives are thus seen as a battleground between analog truth and digital manipulation, a fortress where the physical evidence of the past is being slowly converted into a controllable, editable format. Ultimately, the Vatican secret archives stand as the world's greatest monument to the tension between faith and facts. They are the black box of Western civilization. For the faithful, the archives are a testament to the Church's stewardship of history, a preservation effort that saved literacy and culture during the Dark Ages. For the skeptic and the conspiracy theorist, they are a dungeon where the Church keeps the skeletons of its past, literal and metaphorical. The fascination with the secretum is driven by a modern crisis of authority. We no longer trust institutions to tell us the truth, so we assume the truth must be hidden in the places we are not allowed to go. If the archives were thrown open tomorrow, exposing every scrap of paper to the sunlight, would we find a history-shattering revelation? Or would we find, as the archivists insist, just miles of boring administrative letters, receipts for candles, and diplomatic pleasantries? Perhaps the greatest secret of the Vatican archives is that there is no single secret, only the crushing weight of 2,000 years of human fallibility, compromise, and survival. But as long as the doors remain locked and the Swiss guards stand watch, the world will continue to wonder if the answers to the greatest mysteries of existence, from the bloodline of Christ to the existence of aliens, are sitting on a dusty shelf in Rome, waiting for the right pope to turn the key. The silence of the archives is not empty. It is heavy with the ghosts of everything we have forgotten or been made to forget. In the end, the Vatican archives remind us that history is not what happened. History is what the people in power chose to save.